Greetings and welcome to LGR Oddware, where we're taking a look at hardware and software that is odd, forgotten, and obsolete. And today we got this little thingy right here. This is the HP PhotoSmart mobile camera from 2003, a 1.3 megapixel digital camera with manual focusing and everything that's bolted onto an SD card, and you got an interface that plugs straight in to compatible PDAs in the early 2000s. Let's check this thing out. So right here we have the HP PhotoSmart mobile camera for iPac Pocket PCs, including a series of HX1000 devices. And this was sold at an initial asking price of $149.99 USD in October of 2003, which is when it first hit the North American market. And just a real quick thanks to TJ, an LGR viewer who sent this in among some other awesome things. Very much appreciated. I had been looking out for one of these for a little while actually, because I had an HP iPac back in the day. I remember reading about this and I always thought it would be super cool to have a digital camera in the palm of my hand on like a big old touchscreen device. Man, imagine that. Like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. It really was a novel idea. And the fact that it made use of an SD card slot just made it all the more interesting. And that's why it's still interesting, despite being very much obsolete in terms of like just everything has a camera now. So you don't need to use an SD card slot to get one, but for a time it made sense. And that's why I think that this is worth taking a look at. So we got some quick specifications here. 1.3 megapixels total resolution. I'm not sure if that means it upscales or what. Might do some sort of interpolation. 4x digital zoom, SDIO interface. We'll get to that here in a sec. Video capture and voice annotation. So that's a thing. I didn't actually know it did video capture back when I first learned about this. Requirements, a little hard to read there, but Windows 98 ME, XP, Pentium 2, 64 megs of RAM, your standard stuff really. It doesn't need the software for much of anything except for just setting up the stuff to put on the iPac itself, I believe, and I'm sure there's some kind of PhotoSmart software maybe for doing a little bit of basic image manipulation. But let's go ahead and open it up really quick just to get a little closer look at it. So there is all that comes inside of it, at least in this one that I have here. Okay, so we got a CD full of software. There is a user's guide on there. I was wondering about that. So digital, not physical. HP Photo Center, there's that. iPac Image Zone, I'm assuming that's what goes on the PDA itself. And of course the drivers for Windows. And a product warranty. Of course the camera itself. And a nice little carrying pouch. Look at this. So yeah, that's a magnetic thing going on there. Ah, wasn't expecting that. So we got a little belt loop or a clip. Yeah, belt loop. So this is pretty darn similar to the pouch that the iPac itself would have used. This is sort of a leathery leatherette thing. I don't know if it smells like leather. Also just smells old and musty. Anyway, looks like that goes in there. Aww. That's just delightful. And of course, here is the HP PhotoSmart mobile camera itself. It really is just an SD card interface connected to a camera. And then you've got this part here that does this. One goes all the way around. Want to do selfies? There you go. And I'm assuming, yeah, I got a little adjustment here for doing macro or farther off focusing. So yeah, let's just briefly talk about the SD card interface here, because this is actually SDIO, which is an SD card interface extension, and that allowed the connection of peripherals like this through the host SD controller. Now really, the interfaces themselves are identical between SD and SDIO in terms of physically and electrically. So SDIO slots, like the ones that are in these HP PDAs, they support normal SD cards and MMC just fine. But your regular SD card slot will not work with an SDIO device unless it's specifically built to support it. And as an interesting little side note, SDIO is actually still used to connect Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on ARM and Intel Atom systems, including just countless Android and Windows Atom tablets using things like Realtek wireless interface chips. as well as on single board computers like the Raspberry Pi 3 and 4 that use SDIO as an interface for its Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities. So yeah, even if you've never used a little thingy like this, you may have very well used SDIO in something at some point, although we're talking about internal integrated stuff there. Whereas removable SDIO, like this little camera here, has largely been replaced with USB and/or Lightning, depending on your mobile device of choice. You know, why bother messing with putting things in a card when you can just plug it in through a cable somewhere, at least until phones go without cables. Ugh. And the HP PhotoSmart here was not the only SDIO camera, so this wasn't like a one-off or anything. There were others like the SpecTech SDC that I've come across, and the LifeView FlyCam SD, each of which were available for a couple years around the same time as the PhotoSmart, and had pretty similar specs as far as I can tell. And it also wasn't just cameras that were stuffed into SDIO card interfaces like this. You also had GPSs and other various wireless things like this low power SDIO wireless LAN card. So yeah, if your PDA didn't have Wi-Fi, there you go. You can do that. My PDA, the HP iPAC RX 1955, did have Wi-Fi, and that was a selling point at the time. They didn't have Wi-Fi for a good little while, actually, but yeah, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, a whole bunch of other things were SDIO devices. So while there were a lot of devices, I don't know how well these cameras actually ended up doing. I don't remember seeing anyone who actually had one back in the day, and I knew a number of folks that were super into the PDA scene. So who knows? I mean, the thing is, like, a decent PDA running Windows Mobile 2003 for Pocket PC, which is what this required, that would cost you anywhere from $400 to $650 or so in 2003. Let's just say $550 total for the camera and a PDA itself. That sounds okay, I guess, for a digital camera solution and a smart device, but for the same price, that would also get you a really nice digital camera at the time, like a 5-megapixel Olympus, seen advertised here, 3x optical zoom, not just relying on crappy digital, or that's just so much better for the same price. Or if you really went cheap, you could get a Concord 3.1 megapixel Digicam for $150. It's probably garbage, but hey, it didn't require a PDA. I mean, that's on its own right there, the same price as just an SDIO camera. I also ran across some old reviews from users complaining about terrible low light performance, making it essentially unusable indoors. So that's something we're gonna have to check out here. And also the SD card interface being a pop-out solution. You know, it's meant to sort of press in and out really quickly, unlike Compact Flash, for example, where those, they stay in there unless you pull on them pretty good. Or maybe there's a button to push them out off to the side or something. But yeah, there were actually CF card slot cameras too, and I noticed some reviewers mentioning that those might be a better buy if you had a PDA that supported it. But yeah, with the HP PhotoSmart mobile camera here, you're meant to use it with something like this. And the iPAC I have here, this just has a little SD card slot insert, just plastic. And then this goes on the top like that. And there you go. And you can see how relatively easy it would be to just sort of maybe bump it up against something and oh, you know, the camera's coming out. Especially since it makes it kind of top heavy. I don't know, I wouldn't see it as being a huge problem, but who knows? After using this for a couple days, we'll see. There you go, flip it around. What a goofy looking thing. Let's set it up on Windows, get some software onto here, and then go and take some pictures with an SD card camera. Alright, got the LGR Windows XP build going here, and let's get it set up. So let's see. Camera driver, yeah, put everything on there. We could read the user's guide first, but we're not going to do that. So it looks like it's just going ahead and taking care of the application installation by itself for the iPAC side of things. The program is from an unknown publisher. Do you want to continue? Sure. It's from HP device, but whatever, man. So it's getting that cab file copied over. It has been successfully copied. Also doing image zone and image transfer. So that's still going on down here actually in the background. I guess ActiveSync is taking care of that. And it looks like we have an ArcSoft HP Photo Center that goes in the Windows side of things. And now let's look at the user's guide, since we've already installed the dang thing. Oh, do I not have Acrobat on here? No, I don't. Guess we're not going to read Go ahead and restart here. Aw, yee, XP. Let's see what we can do with just the IPAC side of things. See if that's going real quick. Take off this polarizer. Causes so many problems with LCDs. Okay. Assuming it has installed some programs on here somewhere. Yeah, we got PhotoSmart Mobile something. Image Zone. And it put something else on there, but I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, HP Image Transfer. I'm assuming that'll work with software on the PC side of things. So let's just insert the camera, see if it does anything. Oh, look at that! A live video feed of our CRT. Oh no. Well, that's an immediate not great thing. The stylus is blocked by the camera itself. Perhaps it was designed for devices with the stylus on the other side, but then it'd be kind of blocking like the headphone jack, which is where it is on here. Anyway, let's just take a picture with, I'm assuming that is the shutter. Wow, that is a loud shutter. Ooh, that looks like an awful photo. Just take a picture of my speakers here. Neat. Let's go ahead and try it out and take some pictures. So, whenever I'm testing a camera, I often like to capture some street art, and this area in particular is a favorite, with all the bold lines and vibrant colors blasted by direct sunlight. Though it's proving difficult to see the PDA's screen with that late morning sun overhead, so I just left everything on auto, and here's the resulting photo, which immediately gets us into the way the HP mobile camera often treats vibrant scenes. If you've got a lot of bright, evenly distributed light, it'll always darken the image to the point where none of the highlights are blown out and the shadows aren't crunching too low. But the overall results are also quite a bit darker than it is to the naked eye. The colors are also less saturated, with the white balance skewing warmer rather than cooler. Moving on, and another spot I like visiting is this alley down here, called Chicken Alley for obvious reasons. I've always liked this piece with its bright blues and reds with black and white shapes on top of brick. It's just awesome. And again, the camera ends up compensating for sunlight to the point where the photo ends up being quite dark and low on saturation, with a bit of chromatic aberration going on with certain bright highlights like the wet pavement on the bottom right. It's a nice crispy image for 1.3 megapixels though, no complaints there. And it's flat enough so that there's enough dynamic range to correct things after the fact like this. Yeah, I'd much rather have a flat image I can correct than a blown out picture that's ruined by overcorrecting one way or another. Kinda like what ended up happening here. I was wandering past this parking area and noticed this fantastic Toyota Land Cruiser. Ugh, just look at this thing. FJ40, I guess? I'm no expert on these, but I've always loved the way they look, and this one was just in phenomenal shape and looking awesome up against all that light coming in. Of course, the little PhotoSmart isn't equipped to handle such a wide difference in illumination, so it went with keeping the Land Cruiser bright but visible on a background that's completely washed out. It's still better than a pitch black silhouette, but yeah, there's only so much it could do here, and that's half the reason I took the photo since I was curious how it'd handle it. That and the fact that that Toyota is just amazing. And here's another scene I like capturing in the morning. This street that goes up the hill there with omnipresent shadows from the buildings on the left, and it's looking even more appealing this morning with the rainwater draining down the road there. Once again, the HP did a better job than I thought it would. The shadows have some range to them, the sky's still got some blue and isn't all washed out, and the highlights on the building to the right in direct sunlight still have some good detail and color. It is notably zoomed in though, despite me standing across the road. The little lens here doesn't have the widest field of view, but it's not terrible either. Something you can typically compensate for by backing up a few steps if you want. This alley is another place I like taking pictures, because I just like alleys, and these steps and power lines look cool. It's also another good spot to see what older digital cameras do with it, and yeah, not bad in my opinion. All that sunlight coming in from the east washed out the sky a bit, but it did well handling the shadows on the bricks and underneath the stairs. And again, the colors are desaturated while also being on the warmer side, giving it an arguably appealing vintage look that I'm really starting to dig. On up from here, there's another cool spot where you can get a decent look at downtown Asheville, a few floors up in a parking garage. And with a longer, wider view like this, I figured it'd be a good spot to put that 4x digital zoom to the test. with my subject being the Flatiron building off in the distance, that wide yellowish off-white building in the middle there. And well, this is one of those shots where the mobile camera adjusted things in an interesting way. I can't tell whether I like it or not. You know, I did an alright job of keeping my subject visible, but at the expense of practically everything else in the frame. The black levels are cranked down so far here that there's basically nothing left. And now, as for the digital zoom, well, at 2x, this is what you get. Well, which I mean, yeah, cropping your photo is just the way digital zooms work, so I expected that, but usually the camera upscales the cropped image to the resolution you're shooting in. Not here. Instead, it just crops your picture and leaves it at whatever that size ends up being. Same with the 4x DigiZoom, it's just even more cropped. So now we're left with this postage stamp sized photo that's a tiny portion of the original shot. I never use digital zooms anyway, but this right here takes the cake in terms of being truly useless. Alright, moving on to another area, and this clock is something I always like capturing, and it's a good opportunity to shoot something portrait instead of landscape. And once again, the little Photo Smart really surprised me. This ended up being one of my favorite pictures taken over the last few days. The colors are warm, the shadows have real range to them, and the sky ended up being this deep blue with some lovely vignetting in the corners. I don't know, I really like this. It reminds me of a 35mm print more than a quick PDA photo shot with a tiny SD card camera from 2003. And since the camera can turn around 180 degrees, I figured why not test that out with a selfie on this windy street corner. It ended up proving somewhat tricky though due to the focusing, which is entirely manual and really finicky to get right on the PDA screen, so it ended up a bit soft. But hey, it did a good job with skin tones, and there's even some decent depth of field going on. But yeah, the disparity between the live preview and the processed photo only got more apparent from here. So like, check out these little fairy closets, or mouse homes, or whatever you want to call them. They dot the sides of certain buildings down here, and are only a few inches tall, so I figured it'd be a good place to test the lens in macro mode. It didn't quite go as planned. It's not that the camera's not capable. The issue here is that what you see on the PDA screen when you're trying to take a picture really doesn't match the eventual processed photo. What you're seeing is more of a general idea of what you'll be taking a picture of, so getting close or small things precisely in focus is a total crapshoot. Like this little door right here looked perfectly crisp in the live viewfinder feed, but it's all blurry in the final shot. This blue door fared better, but only after trying like 5 times, and even then it's still not as clear as I'd like. But you know, whenever you do get it right, the mobile camera does a pretty good job with macro. Just check out what Commander Keen and Tiny Doom Guy look like, shot just a few centimeters from the lens. Yeah, it's not bad at all. I'm legit impressed with the macro on this thing. It's not the sharpest, cleanest image, of course, and on less busy shots like this, the color, noise, and aliasing caused by the sensor is more apparent. But overall, yeah, still impressive for what it is. And yeah, that was an indoor shot, and it's not supposed to be any good at taking indoor shots. Well, I was blasting that scene with light. If you were to photograph just a normally lit indoor scene, like my setup here, well, the results are less than charitable. The reviews weren't wrong when they were saying that it did very badly with lower light conditions, or even medium light conditions. This camera really needs to be outside, or just blasted with a ton of light if you're indoors, and you're gonna have to provide that light yourself since there is no flash. And finally, we can't forget about video, because yeah, it does that. And to test that, it's back out onto this random intersection to record some passing cars. Here it is with my phone's camera, and here it is with the highest resolution mode of the mobile cam from HP. A whopping 320 by 240 max resolution and like, I don't know, a few frames per second maybe? And there is also a higher frame rate mode that shoots in 160 by 120. Yeah, I guess it captures more frames and a few more colors too, but I mean, at this point it's all abstract slideshow art, so who knows? Honestly, just the fact that it shoots video with sound at all is pretty cool, but man, that early 2000s aesthetic is rough, and rose-tinted nostalgia can only extend so far. But anyway, now that we've got some pictures and videos taken, let's head back and transfer stuff to a PC. Okay, got a direct capture going with Windows XP now, and we'll just go ahead and plug it in and see what happens. Yeah. ActiveSync doing its thing. It looks like it sees, yeah, the images, so it's just going to copy them over directly, I suppose. So that's cool. I was wondering if that's how it would work, or if it'd do anything different just with the HP software that it installed on the PC side of things. Like, whoops, this photo center here. I guess this one, mobile print, is just a link to print out your things on a website. Yeah, Pocket PC Print. The beauty of ActiveSync. With PDAs, it made things really easy. You just plug it in, and whatever was different between your PC and the PDA, it would just synchronize them together. In this case, the difference is that there's a bunch of images and videos on the PDA. So this is, we're looking at the PDA side of things. All of our photos and videos are still on the iPack, but if we were to go over to wherever it copied them, so yeah, I went into My Pictures, HP Image Transfer. It looks like it copied just every image that was on the PDA, even the just demo images that it came with. But yeah, here are all of our snapshots, including that first terrible photo of the CRT there, and the blurry photos I was trying to take out of a speaker, and a blurry selfie, and yeah. Let's check out the HP Photo Center software, see if there's anything interesting in here. And, well, it looks like it's just a browser. All right. Thumbnails, unload images. Yeah, I guess if you wanted to do it that way, you probably could. I don't know. I mean, it seems to be that ActiveSync took care of all that, so whatever. We can create slideshows, web albums. Oh my. Archive to CD. Yes, 2003. I was expecting some like image manipulation stuff. Maybe that is in here. Let's just open one of those from earlier. A lovely Toyota. Let's see, we got just kind of looking around through the photos here, but editor, there we go. Yeah, this is kind of what I was expecting. We got cropping, resizing, rotating, auto fix. Let's see what it thinks. Oh, it's giving us a lot of options. Look at that. It's just changing the gamma, like the levels. Auto fix. That's not auto at all. That's just like 9 different options. Okay. Enhance. Brightness and contrast. And hue and saturation and sharpen and blur. Drawing, if we want to draw directly on our image. Sweet. You can add text. We got red eye correction. I guess that's it. So, you know, very basic assortment of image editing things that you'd expect from pretty much any application that came with a digital camera back then. I guess that's it for the Windows XP side of things. Pretty straightforward. ActiveSync takes care of it, so that's awesome. And lastly here, let's take a look a little bit closer at just the software side of things on the PDA, because it didn't actually show a whole lot of that earlier. Got the stylus out because, of course, the camera blocks it, and when I do insert it, you can get the app opening automatically eventually, and it also happens whenever you have it turned off like that. It's not actually turned off, but the screen is. And then if you turn it back on, it will reopen the app very slowly. So there's that. You kind of have to deal with that every time you have it pulling out of your pocket or whatever. Another thing pulling out of my pocket, you know, I was saying it's sort of loose in there. Well, it's even looser than I thought initially. Look at that. So it's not even that if you bump it, the pop-out part will just pop out. That's one thing. But then, I mean, it's in there right now. It's supposed to be snug, but look at that. It just comes out very, very easily. So, I don't know if that's a fault of this particular device or the SD card format or the slot. Something weird is going on. None of my other SD cards have this issue in here, so, but then they're not, you know, sticking out either. So maybe it's just, that's just how it is. Nothing looks broken. It just doesn't want to stay in there. So ended up using a little bit of this sticky tack, just sort of hold it in place while I was out and about taking photos. So that's not ideal, but it is what it is, I guess. And again, I want to reemphasize how cool it is to have this rotating lens here, just swiveling around like that. This made this very, very useful for getting shots down low or even stuff up high. Like if I wanted to tilt it up, you could just do that and get some cool building shots or whatever I wanted to do. Or more often than not, like I was looking at it from this angle, just trying to get it out of the sun. So I'd have to tilt this to sort of correct for it. And hey, look, there we go. I've got it at an angle and it's taking a straight-on photo. Not that you can see very much because the viewing angles on this screen are not ideal for a camera. And, you know, taking a picture is incredibly simple. You just have the one little shutter button there, and there's that. Of course, you got to make sure everything is manually in focus. And it does change a little bit. You know, I was saying earlier there with the live view not being the most accurate thing, it's just kind of very slow to update. And it's hard to tell on that little screen sometimes what's in focus and what's not, especially when you're talking macro. And it's just this live view that is less sharp even than the resulting processed image when you actually take a photo. So that's tricky. We've got the digital zoom here with its resulting terribly cropped images that aren't upscaled. And then there are a number of camera settings in here. So yeah, you can actually change this from being auto mode to less so. So you got white balance, the color range here, so black and white negative. Have it on best compression, which gives a larger file size, but better quality. And this is the default resolution here. I wanted it, this aspect ratio. You can go up to 1280, but 1024. You have the auto exposure metering, so I just had it on center weighted. But you can't change like f-stop, ISO, shutter speed, anything like that. It is just automatically taken care of. There's also camera sounds, instant review, that little preview that it pops up after the live preview, self-timer, and something called business card framing aid. Haven't checked this, let's see what that does. Okay, it just, if you're taking photos of a business card, I suppose, there's that. It's just got a little outline there, and it appears to have frozen. Yeah, that happens rather often too. I ran into that a lot while I was out there, so just kind of have to, yeah, try and restart it. Sometimes it'll restart, sometimes it won't. There we go, that worked. And yeah, video resolution, audio on and off. And that's pretty much it. Everything else is more or less automatic. And the last thing here is the iPack Image Zone. And this is pretty similar to the HP software that is on the Windows side of things, where you have a gallery of all your photos and videos and whatnot, and you can look at them, manage them just a little bit. You can edit their names, view a slideshow, rotate images, like this one right here needs to be rotated, so. What? Not enough memory. Why? I'm not seeing any problems here. Now, of course, you can't insert an SD card for additional storage while having the camera inserted, so that's one thing. You only have so much space to store photos and video, but I mean, these are tiny little things, less than a megabyte each. You can fit like 2 or 3 photos in a megabyte, depending on your compression. But yeah, why is it saying out of memory just for rotating an image? I don't know, it's working now. So yeah, really not a lot to do here. I mean, you can, you know, zoom in and get some details of your image. That's nice. But most of the actual image editing, like color correction and brightness, contrast, saturation, all that, that's going to be happening on the PC side of things. Oh, and you can also leave little audio messages to go along and narrate your photos. So, look at this daggum car. Look at this daggum car. Such utility. Really, considering the other options in 2003, I mean, sure, you could buy a much better standalone digital camera, but this, being as small as it was, you got a cool screen and everything, if you already had a PDA, I totally understand the appeal. And of course, really the only other comparison would have been like cell phone cameras, but those had not been a thing for very long. In 2003, when this came out, I think like a year here in the US, and even those were a megapixel less, like 0.3 megapixel, and didn't do a lot of the things that this could, especially not with this big of a screen. Well, I suppose that is pretty much it for this piece of oddware for this video. The HP mobile camera, the PhotoSmart little thingy, is just a delightful piece of early 2000s tech in my mind, even though it was very quickly obsoleted by all kinds of other alternatives, and especially cell phone cameras started to really take off in the next year or two. But for a very short period in time, this was one of the coolest things out there from what I remember. I just thought this was so awesome, and I wish I could have had a PDA for one, but also justified the cost, you know, $150 for just one little camera add-on to an already expensive device. I mean, $150 was what the camera that I had in 2004 cost, brand new, and that was like 10 times better than this. So, you know, that's not really the point though. If you already had a PDA, or you just were someone that could afford it, then why not? This is such a cool little alternative to having a separate digital camera and a PDA that you'd carry around. You know, mix them together with mixed results. It's just one of those things that made PDAs, which are already one of the coolest mobile devices around back then, even cooler. And I think it's still cool. So yeah, hope you enjoyed watching. And if you liked this episode of Oddware, then do check out some of my others. I've covered all kinds of different things from the past decades, with many more to come, and new videos of varying types each week here on LGR. And as always, thank you for watching.